How are you doing? It's Martin from Gardens for Life. This is just a video about our talk that we gave at this seed swap. Please bear with us on this one. The quality isn't the best, but still I thought it was worth posting up just for the content of it. It's mostly just a quick introduction into no-dig gardening, a little bit about forest gardening or lasagna gardening for perennial plants, and also a little bit about plant propagation as well. So hopefully this video will be useful to some of you, and please let us know in the comments below if you have any questions or if you like the video, and give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. Thanks a million. Please feel free to subscribe to our email list where we'll be announcing when we'll have our no-dig course, our first online course available. And you also get a free ebook which is basically a questions and answers book of a no-dig gardening, and you get that for free in the subscriber area. Alright, we're ready to go. We're going to give a talk, and we are bringing some samples. It's a seed swap, so we're going to bring these pumpkins and we'll swap the seeds in them. We also have some willows, some artichokes, some giant yacon tubers. These are for eating though, they're not the growing tips. And we're also going to bring some samples of wood chips and some soil samples, as in compost samples from our gardens. Don't forget the wellies, although I do have waterproof shoes.
Thank you for coming, Martin. This is Martin from Gardens for Life, everyone.
Yay.
Hello.
Hello.
And they're an inspiration, and we look forward to Martin telling us all about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yay.
So yeah, we're from Gardens for Life. We just basically work with nature to try and do less work in the garden, make it more productive and have less maintenance in the garden. Just by working with nature, we're trying to mimic all the natural systems, if you want to call them that. I mean, when you think about it, nature doesn't dig, with the exception of pigs, obviously, but normally nature doesn't plough the ground, it doesn't plough the soil. So we do a no-dig gardening, which was inspired by Charles Dowding, of course, who else? But also a lot of other people around the world too, where we just simply smother the grass underneath. You have 3 different ways to smother the grass. You can cover it with black plastic for a time, say 2 months during the summer or 6 months in the winter, and then take the plastic away and just put compost on top. And you can plant straight into it. You could loosen the soil if it's very compacted, but only, let's say, lightly fork it. Don't turn it over, because you're only digging up old wheat seeds when you're actually digging. And it's a lot of work, right? And the worms actually come up and eat all of the existing grass that you're smothering. So the idea is to keep the soil structure intact, because the soil structure is basically all the tunnels from the worms that help with aeration, and of course drainage as well. And you have all the different plants with a taproot that when they die eventually, like a dandelion or whatever, or a thistle, they leave a like elevator shaft. So it kind of, a dandelion actually goes 4 meters down into the ground. It's hard to believe, but it's only hair thin at the very end, but it leaves a place where the soil life can actually travel up and down the soil, and that's really important. It's all about cultivating the soil life.
And windbreaks.
Yeah. So if you want to get started straight away, instead of having to wait for a few months, you can just use cardboard instead. We just get brown cardboard from furniture warehouses or furniture shops or bicycle shops. They're really good. Big sheets of cardboard. If I had some now, I would show you.
One point on that I heard is like there's some of the cardboard has like a laminated kind of fixture.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother.
Is that okay to use that stuff?
You could use it if you have it. If you have a choice, it's better to get just brown cardboard with less paint. You know, I mean, the soil life will eat it all, and it'll recycle it. Even if there is a little bit of glue, don't worry about that. It doesn't matter. Which? The fungus in the soil. Yeah. We have. I'll show you some examples of the mycelium. Mycelium is just the root of the fungus, and the fungus actually, it can help digest. It can help gather materials and minerals and whatever the plants need in return for sugar. So we'll get into that in a minute, though. So the idea is to make sure you get cardboard with no holes in them like this. Otherwise, you're going to have to cover it again. And we do just big sheets of cardboard and overlap it very well. Overlap it at least maybe 8 inches or 20 centimeters, so that the grasses don't creep through. And the idea is to just exclude to exclude light to the grasses. Then you can put your compost right on top, straight away on top of the cardboard. So then you can get started straight away growing annuals, for example. The cardboard will break down over time underneath, and the worms actually will digest the carbon and make it available to the plants as well. So there's no harm in that at all. We've been doing it for a long time. But if you plan your garden, we're not great on planning, first of all. I should actually go way back. First of all, when we do gardening, we do it one piece at a time, one piece of the garden at a time. We don't really plan the whole thing. We know about permaculture. I haven't done a course, but I've done a lot of permaculture, and I think I love the designs and all of that. But I prefer just letting your land develop organically, one bit at a time, and then you figure out what you need or what you want as you go over the years. Like we basically started right in the middle because we didn't know where to start. We started right in the middle of our field, and we made a so-called wood chip island, as we call it. That was our first garden, and then we did no-dig garden beds on the sides. So we have a website too. I can show you. I was going to bring a screen and show videos and everything, but it's too much. You can all have a look if you want to later. We have a YouTube channel with loads of videos about that type of thing. And so what I want to show you was, one more way to smother the grasses and the existing vegetation other than cardboard and plastic would be to simply use poultry. You can use chickens are ideal anyway. Ducks don't scrape, so they're not great for getting rid of the grass. But the chickens will actually get rid of the grass completely, and then you can just cover it.
The grass seed that's
the upper layer, That's really important because you don't want those sprouting.
That's been my problem. I'm like, oh, look how lovely it is, and then grass.
Yeah, so you're just trying to create a somewhat artificial environment by just adding manure or compost on top, right? But you're keeping the soil structure underneath, and whatever vegetation was there will actually be digested by the soil life and by the worms. So you're getting the most of it, and without doing the work of having to pull up all the weeds, right? So then you can garden in that, and you can top it up. We usually put down 4 to 6 inches of compost, is mushroom compost, ideally at least 3 or 4 months old. We've been using mushroom compost for 20 years now from different places around the Midlands, and it's always been very good. Like there may be a little bit of something in it, who knows, but it's been perfect. If the soil life inhabits the compost after only 2 months of the pile being in our garden, well then we're sure that it's safe. You know? If the soil life is okay with it, we're okay with it. Right? If you ever have any questions, you can ask me in the middle of it if you want to. Mushroom compost is it just comes from mushroom farms, and they discard it after 10 weeks of using it. And it is.
Does it have spores in it? Will you get
Big mushroom farms actually they steam it first, but that's okay. They just.
But if you put that in a dark place, will mushrooms grow in it?
She wants to get some to grow those mushrooms,
Sorry?
She wanted to get some of the compost before it's been steamed or sterilized. So that she can grow the button mushrooms out of it,
Yeah, you can, but you won't get many of them after. Not much of it left. But you can, it needs more carbon. Like there's, you can, I'll show you now, you can grow mushrooms with wood chips, fresh wood chips. And you can get mycelium from us actually if you want to. It's called wine cap, or King Stropharia is the name of the mushroom. And it's the easiest one to grow in wood chips with no maintenance. So actually while we're talking, sorry?
Are there any growing outside?
Outside, And the best time to propagate it is actually in the summertime. So.
Can you grow it straight away, Martin, or do you need to leave the mushroom compost for a while?
You're better off to leave the mushroom compost resting in a pile because it gets hotter and it breaks down a bit quicker. rather than putting it on your garden straight away. Maybe at least 2 months anyway, maybe 3 or 4 months, but a year or two would be better. I'll show you the difference now. And you can hand this around and you can even touch it and smell it if you like. So this is fresh mushroom compost, look. And it's made of straw, chicken manure and gypsum. And so it's very straightforward. And this is it after 1 year. So you can hand that around and you can smell it too. Gypsum is just like the plastic, like this.
It's like, is it nice?
Yeah, the compost will have been already well broken down. Once you get it, you can use it pretty much straight away after a couple of months anyway. That's the idea. And we put on about this much of it, and it kind of sinks down then, and you can top it up once a year. You can feed the soil life. You're not digging, you're not turning the soil over, you're not turning the compost in the bed over. You're just putting it on top. And actually a bit too warm now after the soup. So
No, that's mycelium.
yeah, there's still the white stuff in the fresh mushroom compost is mycelium, yeah. That's what's left of it, yeah. But I'll show you another type of mycelium now. It's very different. From the winecap mushroom actually. So with no dig, you just top up the fertility once a year. You can just put about an inch worth of fresh compost on top, rather than digging it every year. So.
Compost is years.
I know. I want to go back and get some more too.
The compost is cheap enough. It's very cheap. The problem is the transport. And then you have to have, if you're far from the mushroom farm, you have to get in it. You know, it's hard to bring it by tractor because it takes so long with a tractor, and people don't want to risk getting a flat tire far away with a tractor anyway. But usually, the only reason why you want it delivered by tractor is to bring it in to your land and dump it somewhere, not right beside the driveway. You know. But if you have, depends on your access.
That's it.
If you can get a truck can do it too.
I really acidic soil and apparently mushroom compost comes back to
Yeah, is that what they are?
Can you get it in you there?
But it'll balance itself out eventually, you know, it'll balance itself out after a year. And we found that after a while, we end up at 7.0. But we don't measure it. We did that years ago. We don't do soil samples. We don't worry about that type of thing. You don't. If the plants, if you keep the soil life happy in your garden beds, you don't have to ever do a soil test. You wouldn't have to worry about that type of thing because the soil life is what feeds your plants, and your vegetables are only a byproduct. That's what. Who said that?
I think it was
Toby Hemingway.
Toby
I'd say.
Hemingway.
Your vegetables, your crops are only a byproduct. You're feeding the soil life.
Yeah.
Is there any way, up where I am, like literally I cleared about a tenth of an acre, there was no worms, no one, I didn't find one, really acidic soil thing. So I put in 7 ton of mushroom compost. Then literally, like, is there any way of attracting the worms? Rather than
bringing in organic matter.
Yeah.
What you've done.
Alright, so just keep building the soils of the worms.
Or you can plant worms.
Bring in, you can plant worms. We've done that. You know. We have a video on planting worms. Actually.
Yeah.
Would you can take say if you have a compost pile or whatever, or get them from someone else, just get a few buckets or a wheelbarrow load of compost from a compost pile with full of worms, and just drop them here and there. You know,
It's like the maggots kind of thing.
Worms.
Yeah.
Worms, no, earthworms are different.
They're different.
Oh yeah, maggots are different. Yeah. Earthworms don't turn into flies. And then it's done. It doesn't come back. It might get killed by the frost, or it might just naturally finish once you're done with the.
And you
once
need to
crop it.
collect the seeds to plant again.
You can do seed saving in your own garden. We do a lot of that, and actually some of the seeds here are from our own garden, a lot of them. And perennials. There's annuals, which is short-lived. It's just one season. And then there's biennial, which is 2 seasons. All the onions and all the onions and
Garlic.
garlic. Yeah. What else? Yeah, carrots. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What was I thinking of there? Mullen.
Yeah.
Great mullen is also biennial. A lot of flowers are. They make a rosette
Calendula,
of leaves in the first year, and they build up strength. And then in the second year, they make the flowering stalk and the seed stalk. So Great mullein is a really good plant to have. Everyone can have a packet of seeds.
Yeah.
It's medicinal too. Like
Yes.
you can use it for.
You're very well.
You can use the flowers to put in oil
Yes.
for 6 weeks, and then you can use it as ear medicine for earaches.
It's meant to be very good for your. Is that the one that's very good
Lungs,
for your
yeah.
lungs as well?
It's a lung
so,
herb, yeah.
Yeah.
So you drink it.
Yeah,
It's
you
another
dry.
medicine
Yeah, you
that
can
works
dry
for
your
lungs.
drink.
It's great
Yeah.
for your old fucking hand drill as well. The mullein stem for starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can use it as a torch. That's what they did
Yeah.
in medieval
that's right.
times.
Did
Yeah,
in the
medieval
fine
times they
resin
used to have.
Yeah. So and perennial is just a plant that grows for years and years. And some perennials can grow for 100 years. Like a tree is a perennial. Or say a herbaceous perennial is just a plant, a leafy plant, no wood. But it grows for many years. And some plants like wood mallow, unfortunately, doesn't last very long. It only lasts
Yeah.
for a few years, 2 to
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So it depends. But
Well, we most plant perennials.
yeah, we try to only, we
Yeah,
mostly
we
plant
try.
perennials and perennial kale as well.
Yeah.
And there's actually seeds for that there too.
Yes.
Yeah, perennial kale, yeah.
We brought seeds for you.
Never grow cabbage again. Okay, maybe for making sauerkraut.
Oh, it's amazing. It's really good.
Kale is better than cabbage.
Cabbage. Yeah.
Now, I know
yeah.
there's certain things like sauerkraut that you want cabbage
Yeah.
for, but other than that, for daily use in the kitchen,
For juice. Oh,
it's way better.
You can just add water and or chopped salt. And sauerkraut.
You could,
Yeah.
yeah, you could make it from kale. I've never done that though.
yeah, we didn't.
Kale though, we had trouble with kale was fine. Cabbage though, we ended up with loads of white butterfly.
Sure.
Oh, the white. Yeah.
But you know, you
We
need
did-
to work. You have a bird deficiency in your garden.
Yeah.
You're going to need more birds. You need more birds. You need to build bird houses and put them up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you need to
Birdhouse.
nettle. Yeah, nettle is very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or even a week is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, a week. So yeah, you can make
Fertilizer.
your own liquid fertilizer.
Yeah, fertilizer.
Comfrey leaves and nettle leaves. You can put in water for a week or so,
Mm-hmm.
a week or two, and then stir it. And it's gonna, if
Yeah,
it smells
horsetail
bad, it's
too,
good.
yes.
In this one exception, because it's really fertile, and you can just water your garden with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for the butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's too much work though. It's too much work to spray all your cabbages or all your kales. You know, just for the sake of the butterflies. What I do with the butterflies is I don't kill them. I just take them off, take the leaf off where there's loads of them, and I just throw it far away in a ditch. And they can eat what's left in the leaf,
I
but they
tried
can
that,
find
but they were
something
just
different.
worms, my broccoli, they devastated my broccoli.
Ah.
You just don't have enough
Yeah.
biodiversity. That's all. That's the only problem. You just have a deficiency of predatory species for that particular insect. So birds are perfect for caterpillars. The way you attract more birds,
Caterpillar.
caterpillar, yeah. The way you attract more birds to your land or to your garden is bird houses. In long term, you don't have to do that. Plant berry bushes. Keep planting berry bushes, raspberries and currants. So how to start off plants? You can either use you can start plants by using potting soil and these kind of trays. That's what we often use. Or you can also use soil blocks, which are a bit more work to prepare, but you get a better quality seedling because each of the
Put that into the ground, is it?
no, you just you have a certain mixture of stuff, and you just push it into it, and then you put it onto your tray. You put it onto another tray to start seeds, and you get soil blocks that are the same, similar to that. You can see, but the quality of seedling is better because there's air. There's a gap between each block, and so the roots get air pruned. They don't circle the little pot, you know. They don't get pot bound, as they say. So this is €25, and you only need to buy it once in your life. And it's called a soil blocker. How does it work? You fill it up, you push the soil into it, and then you push the cubes out onto a tray. Like a tray like this tray here. And you can put 40 soil blocks. This is 5. So you can put 40 in one tray like that. So you can fit more.
Yeah,
this
like
is only 12, right? So you get 24. If you use this, you get 40. So you have this is more space efficient.
Yeah.
I always do a similar thing, but I just like stick my finger in the pot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeds in there.
That's what I do too, yeah. I find this is quicker.
Yeah.
It's quicker to set up if you're doing thousands of plants.
Yeah.
This is quicker, but if you want better quality seedlings, you use this
Growth rate.
because once you plant it out and the roots are just perfectly pruned on all sides and they're going to expand in every direction once you plant the seedling into a pot, let's say a bigger pot or into a garden bed, they're going to take off quicker. There's going to be a lot of editing.
I know it's a bit dark, but
Yeah,
I don't know. So
Let's see.
maybe a few bits and bobs.
Oh yeah, so
Books. You're gonna pass them.
I want to tell you something about labels. I don't like using labels in the perennial areas, but sometimes with the varieties, I do it anyway, because I want to know what variety I plant where, so I can take the wood off it and then propagate it, right? But yeah, it's better to have a map of your land, a detailed map, and each plant, if it's a special variety, just write down what it is, say an apple variety or whatever, just so you can take the wood off it later in years to come and actually graft it onto new rootstocks or whatever. And we're only starting that now, this year. We're starting apple trees now from rootstocks. So these are two different types of labels we use. And this is mostly for, for seed trays. Where you just have, what we do is a little trick actually that I worked out. If you're starting a lot of plants, let's say you start 5 trays like that of one type of plant, you just put them in a row on the table in the greenhouse and just stick the label in here. So you know that that row is only that type of plant. So you don't have to write a label for each tray. And but the problem with these labels is they always fade. Even if you use like a proper permanent marker, whatever. What are they called?
I think it's
Sharpie, yeah.
Yeah, Sharpie.
It always fades after 6 months, which is handy because
You
don't
can use it.
Hopefully you remember what you planted.
Yeah.
You can reuse it, yeah, exactly. But whenever it's used, we don't dump it. We put it into a bucket or whatever, and later we can clean it with some alcohol or whatever, I don't know. So these ones here are better for trees and for woody plants because they don't fade. We even had some that are 3 or 4 years old now, and I was amazed. This is vinyl, and you can use a Sharpie for it, and it doesn't fade. But another little tip for you, you can get smaller ones of these too, but it's just because some varieties have such long names, and we put a date on it too sometimes. So the idea is this will get worn out by the wind eventually, but anyway, it's not a problem. Vinyl labels don't fade. So what we do is whenever we put one of these labels into a garden bed outside, we try to put it north facing, where the writing face the writing of the label north facing, so the sun doesn't hit it directly. So that causes less fading, but also put it at a slant like that, so the rain doesn't come off it. The water will slowly wash all the paint away. So put it north facing at a slant. So that way you'll remember what you planted. Little tricks like that. Little tricks. Even with this, like I always try to put it so that it's kind of down like that, so the writing is in the back. But anyway, that's just a little thing about labels. So we basically took cutting, as I said to you earlier. So we do plant propagation too, and we've done workshops with that too. And if you can multiply your plants, if you can grow your own plants, that's a powerful skill to have, and it'll save you not only a load of money, but it also it means that you can expand your gardens exponentially, rather than waiting until I can't afford to buy 10 more plants from the garden centre. Just grow 100. It'll take you a couple hours. That's all really. And then it just takes time to grow them. But there's not much work in it. But I mean, the biggest trouble I have with growing plants is watering the plants in the summer in the pots. That's keeping them alive. But anyway, so we stuck this into. We use these crates. See this plastic crate? We fill that up with potting soil or whatever, peat, whatever you have, because it's good because antimicrobial. And you can just stick the cuttings into it 1 inch apart. You can fit 40 or 50 of them into one crate, and after 2 months it will have rooted. So there'll be a root here. So you can just shake it loose and it comes out really easily. Separate them, Then we plant them into 2-litre pots or into a garden bed, which we end up with this.
Would you do that from cutting into the pot, into the ground in one season, or would you leave them in
One
there for a
season.
full season?
Oh, you don't. You can if you want to. You don't have to harvest the cuttings, the rooted cuttings.
You could leave them
They
in
can
the
stay
plant
in there
next
for
to
2
you.
years, no problem.
Yeah.
There's no problem. Sometimes we don't get to them, and that's okay. It's capital. It's just left there. It's like printing money.
Yeah.
Growing
Better
plants,
root
growing your
stock,
own
yeah.
plants is like printing money, literally, because
Like
you can use them for
I
whatever.
know, right?
So, one thing I
You
wanted
could
to
do
say
that
to you
with
was
blueberries, can you, as well? Blueberries
blueberry. I've never had success with blueberries,
Yeah.
but let me know how you get on.
It's very hard. Yeah, mine too.
Blueberries.
Yeah. So we planted the rooted cutting in the forest garden, just 1 year. So this is all the wood that we got from one plant after 1 year. So then you can get more cuttings. You can get
That's
more plants,
amazing.
right? And don't worry about people. People always say only cut back a quarter of the plant or whatever. Woody plants, it doesn't matter. Cut it back. Don't not to the ground. Keep a few of the leaf buds.
Nods.
You can see them here, the
buds.
leaf buds. So if I was cutting this back now, don't cut it back to here because it wouldn't do well. Cut it back to here, here, here. Keep a few leaf buds. See, there's plenty of them here, so you could cut that back down to there.
And how many buds to cut in about 5 or 6 maybe?
Yeah, that way you get 5 or 6 branches in that one season, and that's something I'm only learning about actually, because even that's okay for me. To me that's good. But if I wanted that to bush out a bit, especially after taking it up out of the ground, like I might cut that back. I might cut that back to here. And what I usually do is, if you are cutting them, I always cut the bottom at a slant, so you know which side is down, because if you plant a cutting upside down, it won't grow. And then you can cut the top. Look, there's actually 2 cuttings, so you could cut the top at straight. That's a cutting. You could rub away the bottom leaf bud, and then stick it into the soil, maybe about that deep, or maybe even that deep, and and that'll actually grow. Even smaller ones like that.
How long until you get fruit?
Second year wood
Second year.
on currants, and gooseberries. Gooseberries like to tip layer though. The plant simply gets heavier and heavier. The branches bend down, and it makes a root on this end, and it makes a new plant right here. So then you can cut it off here, and then you have another plant. It's called tip layering. Tip layering. And our garden is so unusual that mad things happen, and even black currants or other varieties of currants actually just tip over from the wind, and then they tip layer. The whole plant goes like this, and it just tip layers, and then you end up with loads of plants. There's another little propagation. I mean, I could go on for 2 hours about propagation, but this is the older wood. Look, so if it's with black currants or with any kind of currants or any kind of fruit bushes, it's better to cut back the old wood almost to the ground, because it just becomes more and more lanky and less vigilant on the top. See, you can see the difference in color. This is 1 year's growth, and this is the next year. So you can take that like that, and it's called leaving a heel. A heel is that's where all the stem cells are from that's where the plant actually has its stem cells originating from, and you can stick that you can cut that off here on top now, and that'll grow into a stronger seedling than that. See the way, like that has way more
Surface too.
more surface area, but you have the cambium layer is much thicker here. Look. Let me just show you. The green layer is the cambium layer, and that's the layer of the tree that's alive, or the plant. So all trees have cambium. The inside of the tree, the wood is actually dead. It's only the outer bark, the inner bark, the cambium layer, is actually alive. So it's only a thin layer that's actually alive at any one time. So you have no-dig gardening, right? Where does manure land in nature?
On the ground?
It lands on top. It lands on the ground. It doesn't get dug into the ground. So everything we've been taught is nonsense, basically. It's just people trying to take control of nature. You shouldn't. You should just create an environment where you can grow what you like to grow, but try to accommodate nature. Try to work with it.
You can also make like a soup out of manure, just use that to enrich or feed what you grow.
Yeah, and we always with no dig, you always put the compost on top once a year. just to feed the soil life. You can add in an inch or so every year. And if you're extracting a lot, if it's a market garden, say, for selling vegetables, you want to probably add a bit more than that because you're extracting a lot of fertility. Because some compost actually does get used up, especially in garden in containers, in a pot. Even if you have, like, say, that size of a pot and you pot up a plant, after 6 months there's only this much left. Like, it kind of sinks down because the plant eats the compost, so, and it gets a little bit more compacted. So yeah, so no dig is one thing, and maybe one day we can bring everybody up to our garden and have a look, and we'll give you a tour. It'll be probably take about 4 hours now. Who knows? But 1.5 acres, and a bit more at the back of the house. Roscommon Town, near Roscommon Town. Near it. So the next stage in gardening, if you want to call it that, is after no dig gardening, you can add another layer. You can add wood chips on top. That makes it into lasagna gardening. So you have layers. You have cardboard, usually if you want to get started straight away, as I said, cardboard, compost, and wood chips.
Can you bulk it out with like briars and branches and
briars will take
limited compost?
Briars will root. So
they'll root, so
don't use briars.
Dry out first.
Dry them out. Yeah. But you know there's thorns though, and you don't want to be working with the wood chips.
Yeah, it's just like loads of briars.
We all have loads of briars.
Yeah.
Can you use green?
Bit in the grass will root, and then it will just be there.
Yeah.
Wherever you move the pile, we just burn them just to get rid of them. Otherwise they spread.
Yeah. Can you use green fresh branches and stuff?
Well, you'd want to mix it with some carbonous material in a pile and leave it for a while. But if you have a shredder, like a wood chipper, you send it all through and it'll be fine. I wouldn't use hawthorn because you might get stung when you're working with the wood chips, or briars.
Thorns.
Briars, just leave them in a pile somewhere, let them dry out, and the wildlife will move into it. A hardwood is better, but it depends on what you want to grow. If you want to grow mushrooms, hardwood is better. Like as in culinary mushrooms, say, as a byproduct of having in your perennial gardens. And I'll show you that now. So this is fresh wood, fairly fresh wood chips now. This must be about, well, maybe 6 months old, and it wasn't left in a pile. Just take a look at that, and you can even pick it up and smell it too. It's really important to smell it because wait until you smell the next one. The next one is 2 years old from our wood chip island.
Do you ship it yourself? Do you have a machine?
No, we just get it from a landscape, like a tree surgeon or a tree services company. It's really cheap.
Yeah, they just want rid of it.
Sort of, yeah. You know, and if we were living in a city, we'd get it for free because they need to pay to dump it. But obviously, nothing goes to waste here in the countryside. So, but it's cheap though.
They bale it for horses, do they, for stable?
So it's any trees. It's just a tree services company that chops the trees on the side of the road or whatever. And a mixture of trees is good.
Mixture is good.
A mixture.
Pine is too strong.
No, it doesn't matter. And there's another myth for you. If you add pine needles to your garden, it'll make it more acidic. That's BS. I'm sorry. The pine needles will actually dry out after a month or two, and then there's no acidity left. So you can use leylandii or pines for mulch, and it'll last twice as long as hardwood because it has more. What's the name of that? The juices in the pine. Saps. Yeah, sap in it, so it doesn't break down as quick. So the soil life has a hard time breaking it down. But if you want to make your wood chips into fertility, like as in you want your soil life below to eat the wood chips, they will eat it. But the soil life comes up from the bottom, and you have a layer of wood chips like this on top of your garden in your perennial areas, and it'll break it down eventually through mycelium, bacteria, all the little critters and all the little insects and worms. And if you want to add fertility to your bed, you want wood chips that breaks down quicker. But it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, keep it simple. I always say keep it simple. Never mind companion planting, it's too complicated. Just plant things. You can plant gills, like plants that benefit one another, or if you do chop and drop. If you have no fertility and you have no access to wood chips, you can do chop and drop. So you can just have
Nice.
you can have a few we were thinking of getting geese as for watchdog in the front of the garden.
It's a good idea.
So let me show you wood chips that have broken down, and just look, you can see how it's. I couldn't get a bigger piece now, but the mycelium is holding the wood chips together, and the white stuff is the mycelium. That's the roots. Yeah, but this is a special variety. This is a cultivated variety, and you can plant mushrooms, I guess you could call it that, by just putting the mycelium in the ground, and you can get big bricks of it. And actually, mushrooms have been used to make insulation now that has a better R value than any kind of polyurethane or whatever. So just take that and definitely smell it.
Wow.
You gotta, what do you smell?
Mushroom.
Forest flora, I would say. It smells like a forest floor.
It really does. I mean, it's just that gorgeous mould. I love the smell.
It's really, a really pleasant smell.
Yeah,
if there's
like a
something
forest.
that smells bad in nature, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Can you get any type of mycelium
that's
that
the
might
sort of smell
arrive
that
that
you
could
can
be
live
dangerous to your plant?
You know, it's like smell alive.
People say honey fungus is bad for plants. It can eat the roots. It can kill the tree. Wouldn't worry about it, to be honest. I wouldn't worry about it. Once your soil life, it's all about diversity in your garden, right? If your soil life is totally diverse, as in, I don't know, 100,000 species of all sorts of different things, let's say, a healthy soil life, basically, you have nothing to worry about from pests. Plants will grow so quickly that slugs will not actually affect you. People always ask us, like, what do you do about the slugs? We said we ignore them.
Yeah.
We don't worry about the slugs because our plants go in as a seedling. We start all of our plants as a seedling in the greenhouse on a table, and then plant them into a fertile no-dig bed where the roots can spread really quickly. The soil is really malleable and very healthy soil life, and the plant takes off so quick, and the plant
There's
is
no
healthy
chance,
that the slugs. First of all, the slugs can't keep up. But most importantly, slugs are the recyclers of the cold temperate climate, and they eat whatever plants are in stress. So we have an example of that in our garden a long time ago. Another garden that we had when we rented a house, we had lettuce here, okay, and we chopped down. There's a thistle. I'll just pull it up and leave it there. And I came back at night to close the chickens, and there was 10, 15 slugs all over the thistle on the ground. They didn't go, but the slugs didn't go near the lettuce because the lettuce was actually healthy. It was doing well. So
I've lots and lots of thistles, very high, dry thistles now in the area. What do I do with them?
what would you do with it? Try to make sure the seeds don't spread. That's one thing. Don't let them go to seed. Keep pulling them. Keep pulling them. And after 3 or 4 years, there'll be no thistles in your land.
It's a lot of thistle, is it?
They're easy to pull up though.
I think they're a nightmare when you're walking barefoot.
Well, actually, we have thistles. We have a cultivated thistle now. You can get cultivated thistles, also formerly known as artichoke. Not Jerusalem artichokes, that's different. Just globe artichoke or whatever most people don't know about. But we started to grow those last year, inspired by the Bull on Ark in Loughrea. I highly recommend you all looking up Bull on Ark in Loughrea. They've got really good, it's a market garden, Bull on Ark. You will find, we made a video tour of their land.
First and second
in October. It's on our website. And they have a 2-acre market garden, and they have all sorts of animals, and they're breeding some animals too. They have coon pigs. It's just an awesome place. And all kinds of a mixed poultry flock as well. And they use poultry, no cardboard, no plastic. They use poultry to tear up the grasses and just smother or get rid of the, beat back, I should say, the native vegetation, and then they put compost down basically, and wood chips on the paths. So that's what we do. Usually make the garden beds 2.5 foot wide, which is actually the standard. It's 75 centimeters, so you can step over it. And then you can also do this, and you can actually reach the middle of the bed without bending over. Right? So, and then the paths usually as small as possible, a foot. So just basically your foot. So I used to do it with a measuring tape. Don't worry about it. Here's how you measure. Where do I put the next pack? Look, there you go. One.
Right there, yeah.
So and then I do the same thing in the middle of the bed. In the middle of the bed. And then I just walk. I just walk on the path like this, and then I make a line, and then I do this. I just walk like that. So just to compact the compost on the path a little bit. And by the way, we put compost everywhere because the plant roots can grow underneath the path. So you don't have any waste space at all. Now you could put only wood chips on the path, but it'll mix a little bit eventually. So we just put a small thin layer of wood chips, a sprinkle, with a bucket onto the path so we know where the paths are. And other people that come to the garden will see where to go.
Yeah.
We try not to walk on the beds, even though someone as light as Charles Dowding is able to, without compacting it. So we don't walk on the garden beds or planting spaces. So as for, so we kind of moved back to no dig there for a minute.
Yeah.
So let's go back to lasagna gardening. So lasagna gardening is all about stopping weed seeds from blowing in with the wind and then germinating in your garden. Because you're putting down a layer of wood chips this thick, the weed seeds land on top of the wood chips and they just don't germinate. And they're very easy to pull up if they do. Right? Sometimes you end up with the odd weed or a perennial weed maybe coming through the layers and just pull it up very easily. And you'll see that if you ever come to visit our garden. We usually like to, well, the wood chips are like a long-term fertilizer. That's another thing for your perennial gardens. And a forest garden, how does a forest garden, what does a forest do? We're mimicking a forest floor. A forest drops all its leaves, all the broad leaves anyway, the deciduous leaves, down onto the ground. Just before the winter, it insulates the ground so that the soil life continues to be active throughout the winter so that the frost doesn't disturb it. And the soil life and the mycelium, of course, break down the leaves and all the carbon in the leaves over the winter for spring, just for the leaves, for the trees to start a new growing season. So it's a whole cycle. And we found wood chips, covering the whole garden in wood chips was actually really beneficial, not only for long-term fertility, because they do break down slowly. So after 2 years, 3 years, you need to top it up a bit. Maybe a wheelbarrow every 4 square meters or whatever. 2 by 2.
Put compost on top of the wood chips.
No, don't put compost on top of the wood chips. Only if you have to put down the compost first and then the wood chips on top. If
what happens then, like the following year, and then you want to like top up that bed, like do you
always put wood chips on top.
So you just continuously put wood chips on top then, instead of compost.
This is not for annual vegetable production. This is for forest gardening or perennial areas.
Okay.
So it's not really practical to have a layer of wood chips on your annual garden beds because it's hard. You'd have to scrape the wood chips back with a rake and then put a bit of compost here and then put it back. That's too much work.
But you're adding compost every year anyway, so you're kind of
on the no-dig beds.
On the no-dig beds for your vegetables and stuff. So there's no real need for the wood chips to go on.
And the compost acts as a mulch just as well as the wood chips do, but the wood chips are more long term. So you have less work in general, and that's the whole idea. If you can make your garden
it's wonderful.
as little maintenance as possible, you can move on to the next project. Yeah? You can make a garden, say a tenth of an acre here, and feed the family, feed the whole house for half a year, and then you can move on to the next area and make another one, whatever you want to do. But it's a good idea to have a mixture of annual, I don't even want to call it annual because we're crazy up there, because we plant perennials into our no-dig garden beds, which are normally only used for annuals by market gardeners. But it works. Holy mother, it works. The plants are growing so huge in 1 year. Our garden is like, there's no straight lines really, but garden beds are, the garden is kind of shaped whatever the natural shapes are.
And you find that it does help that you do save a lot more space.
And it looks better.
Yeah, it does.
It's more natural. There's no point in having a square garden in the middle of a field. I mean, it's like if you dig a pond, never make a pond round if you want to attract the wildlife. Okay, a round pond is actually the easiest way to do it and the cheapest way to build a pond. But you should actually make it like all jaggedy, the edge like this, you know, so that you have.
To get in and out. And
Well, it's just more edge. More edge means more fertility, more animals, more the two ecosystems kind of collide, and that's where all the action is. It's kind of like you can't really compare that to something humans do. At the edge of a city, no, not really. No, but it's like you have grassland meet woodland. That's where the most interaction is on that edge. See the forest edge over there? Like you guarantee you're going to find most species along that edge because it's sheltered, and there's probably more other species of plants that attract the wildlife more growing there. So, and so some of the books. Well, first of all, keep it simple. Keep your gardening simple. That's the whole idea. Don't get too bogged down with companion planting and all that kind of thing, and worry about the slugs too much. Once you're doing certain things right, I think it just takes over. Like the garden just starts taking over, and it's like the flywheel of nature starts moving. That's what Toby Hemingway always says. So this fella is Sepp Holzer. He's in the Alps. He's really good. It's worth checking him out. If you want to take a look, I'll leave the books here if you want to have a look at them. And he has another book there. There's just it's all different projects that he has done. There's actually a place in Portugal he designed with 4 acres of ponds where there was a desert before that. Gaia's Garden is small-scale home permaculture by Toby Hemingway. It's got all kinds of different. See, it's all about the kind of things I'm talking about. Now, I can't say I have read it all, but the point is, you don't have to study anything to make your garden more fertile and more. What's the word for it? Yeah, like more productive and less maintenance. You just have to keep it simple and follow natural principles. Just think, what would nature do in this case if I have a problem in the garden? And then you can kind of come back to that. And that's what Paul Gauci does. Maybe you've heard of, everyone's probably heard of no-dig gardening, right? So the next step would be back to Eden gardening, where you just cover the ground with wood chips. Right? And that works too. That's more long-term. But you can grow vegetables in that too. You can grow vegetables, annual vegetables in pure wood chips, but you need to let it break down a little bit. Or just do what I do the fast track way, the lasagna, where you put down your compost and then your wood chips on top. So, Paul Gauci is really good to look up on Back to Eden. Type that into YouTube. Anyway, on our website, just type in inspired, and then you get the list of people, and Paul Gauci's in it. And he always takes natural principles and then applies them to his garden, so it's really interesting.
Makes sense. Nature's been doing it for
thousands of years.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah.
This is a really good book, Herbal Medicine. I found this is the best book, and it's got, funny enough, we were gardening for years already, and we weren't ever really into herbal medicine too much, and we're probably going to get this video deleted off YouTube because we just said that. Because we're using certain words.
That happened.
One of my videos was actually deleted. It was inappropriate content because you need to point the camera up a bit. One of the videos was actually deleted off YouTube a few months after I posted it because it was 9 herbs that help with viruses or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Can't be doing them truth stories now. What are you
can't be
doing?
doing that. And it was only a bit of time and a bit of sage.
Yeah.
It was only stuff. It was only
That was
culinary
all.
herbs. It was only kitchen herbs as well.
But you were giving people truthful information, and that can't
You
happen.
can't be telling people about kitchen herbs are good for you. They want people to eat McDonald's. For God's sake.
Also, can't tell people that you teach them to go out and garden and make your own food.
Exactly. Yeah. Wouldn't have that now, would we?
Well, that will become illegal eventually. Just like it
Probably
did.
will, yeah,
Here's the
probably.
thing, right? I'll give you a hint. 150 years before the Roman Empire collapsed. 150 years. That's a long time. They put a tax on fruit trees.
Okay.
So if you have an apple tree or whatever, a fruit tree, you pay tax on that every year. Just like people are supposed to pay tax on other dogs or whatever. I don't know. What have you? You have to have a license to have a fruit tree.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Before
We
the
might
collapse.
Be that again someday.
You never know.
You know that.
So,
Getting there.
I think we are edging towards that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Everything.
we're non-conformists. We're non-conformists.
No.
Yeah, so we will finish here in a minute anyway. But what I want to say about this book is, funny enough, we looked at it and we were gardening for a few years already, and we have half of these plants in our garden already. We didn't know about it, right? So we call it. It's called. Well, actually, Jack Spirko coined the term. It's the peaceful insurrection, right? Like a quiet insurrection, or sorry, ethical insurrection. That's the word for it. Where you just we're a nursery, right, for the garden, and we don't do it professionally yet, but we might eventually now. And you could sell people ornamental plants that they're used to, and then tell them about the medicinal use later. So while they already have them there, you know. So let's fill up everyone's gardens in the whole of Ireland full of medicinal plants without their knowledge, and then tell them about it later when they need them.
Surprise!
Even a birch tree.
We do that every year.
Algorithm is better. Creating a new system, not fight the existing system. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone should look up an agorist podcast. Agorism is just kind of like anarchism, but without the labeling, without the baggage. It's all about not fighting the existing system, but creating a better system and compete with the system.
Right, yes.
How about that?
Exactly, yeah.
And there's a really good podcast by a number of podcasters that was created not so long ago. It's called Unloose the Goose. You got to look that up. It's really good. And there's all sorts of topics about. There could be taking your finances in your own hands, growing your own food, how to manage your homestead, how to start your own business so you don't have to work for the big corporations. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just basically everything you're saying there basically ties in with what I've been reading up on. It's telling everybody about here since we started these cruises about perennial. Perennial was that agorism, like you say, is that relationship between people and the land that they work and live on, and get their food from this is their systems.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think going forward that I'm trying to see where.
Go forward to go backwards.
Yeah, pretty much. So if they look at
To the spotlight again.
if they look at like historical cases in that context and see how it's just basically living, like it says, I don't know, but it actually just goes hand in hand. Pretty much.
You'll be giving one of these talks?
Well, there's and we should get in people to talk about this stuff every month.
Yeah, well, that's what
There's another website. I haven't really explored it yet now, but it comes from one of the people that's involved in Unloose the Goose. It's just a podcast, and podcasts are great. You can just listen to them while you're doing something mundane work.
Yeah.
You know that you don't really need your full concentration for. Like driving a digger. No, maybe not. I don't know. I don't do that. But like say while you're potting up plants or whatever, you can listen to a
While
podcast.
you're cooking, or
Yeah, or whatever, yeah. freedomcells.org, I think it is. And this is kind of like a freedom cell. People, like-minded people, friendly people, talking to each other about real-world solutions. It's a solution-driven, collaboration, really.
Like your gardening techniques, it's just the natural way that things work. Rather than trying to force this kind of, let's go to school at 9 o'clock. And
The reason why we're able to bring in extra stuff all the time, anywhere we go, we bring in extra stuff from the garden because we have a huge surplus. And we just want to share it. Well, we don't share all of it. We have some for sale, if anyone's interested. There's a couple of bits there, willows and Jerusalem artichokes and mashuas.
How about the peppers?
Yacons, not yet available. The growing tips, is it? To start a plant.
Yeah.
Those ones are for eating, the tuber. But
You
they,
grew them.
yeah,
And what is the bigger one?
it's the same, it's yacon.
So yacon is
Yeah.
So different kind?
Yeah, different variety, yeah.
Where do you grow?
Outside, yeah. Outside, yeah. Yacons are really good. You can get a yield.
for the first time there inside, it's lovely.
yeah.
It's really nice, isn't it? The kids love it.
I know.
The kids eat it like that one. It's 4 weeks cured. It's a little bit long, but anyway. And it grows a bit like a dahlia. It's like a dahlia tuber. All the tubers come off the bottom, and you have a crown on the top, and then you cut the crown into little pieces, the growing tips, and that's in March. So we're going to sell those at the start of March on our website, and there's a list of like 40 people already looking for them.
Yeah, it's an amazing food. It's probably very nutritious too, is it?
Oh, I'd say so, yeah. And it's yacon actually is the primary ingredient in all what's that called? Diabetic products.
Yeah.
Like it's a sweetener. Inulin.
Yeah.
And there's another vegetable that has loads of inulin in it, and that's the Jerusalem artichoke. I'll show them to you here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
To hide my
This is a great book, and it is yours.
Yeah.
Well, people should have a look at it. This is Martin Crawford's book. Really good. Trouble is, I just don't have time to read it. I like videos.
Videos are so much use because you can do multitask.
That's why we make videos. We don't write books, and I don't want to write big articles. I don't want to spend loads of time writing text that nobody wants to
How
read.
about those? And
This is a
these?
big con like that they've had for so years that you have to work hard to
Willows.
It's like actually you can just move organically and things happen. Without a great lot of effort.
So look, oh yeah.
I mean, the Jerusalem artichokes, they create a lot of air. You keep on.
Yeah, but that's because you didn't cure them. You have to cure them in light for 2 weeks.
In a
On a
greenhouse, yeah, or a window.
You can put them on a windowsill for 2 weeks.
After you get them out.
Yeah. You cannot eat them directly.
Yeah.
So these are just they're a tuberous sunflower. They're called Jerusalem artichoke. Yeah. And so they make lots of little sunflowers at the very end of the season, like say October-ish or November even. And these are 2 different varieties. This is actually white truffle. It's a German variety, and this is red fusau.
Is it
And
only outside or inside?
what's that?
It's
The
red
colour,
inside.
it's only white on the inside.
Yeah,
White.
outside.
And it's like sunflowers, it's good for the seeds mostly and the beans.
Not seeds, no. This is just makes tubers.
Like potatoes.
It might make seeds, but not in our climate.
So you get a big sunflower.
Lots of little sunflowers. Lots of
A
small
tiny,
ones.
yeah, small. They are small
Lots of little
flowers.
ones, yeah. We have a video.
Are they your seeds? They're not your seeds for
So when
next
you
year.
plant them?
It's the little.
No, this is what you plant.
Yeah.
So you plant one of these in the ground, and you end up with probably, well, maybe 10 or 20 of them.
Right.
So you plant one, but they will. It's kind of hard to to collect them all and get rid of them again. But in a no-dig bed, it's not too bad. But you could plant these in places where you don't really mind, at the edge of at the edge of your garden, and just leave it there for years, and then harvest them whenever you want.
Yeah.
So it's a perennial vegetable. It's a perennial vegetable. You don't have to harvest it if you don't want to, and they're not as good as potato for starch, but they're pretty good. And don't forget, when you take them out of the ground, they're also known as fartichoke, because there's loads of inulin in it, and it usually disturbs most people, at the beginning especially, but you can build up a tolerance too. And it's really good for the digestive system, but you can also cure them, just leave them somewhere with light.
Right.
Like say not even direct light, it doesn't really matter.
Just
on a
light.
table in the greenhouse for a week or 2, and then that's fine.
And then you can
roast them. Roast
So one
them
of
is the best
them,
way.
you plant them in and then there'd be like potatoes, there'd be a bunch of them in
Yeah.
the ground?
Yeah. Like this one here, you'd get a clump like this size. And different Jerusalem artichokes grow different ways, but they're really good anyway for growing. And we also have these are some rhubarb stools. So this is a variety called, this is 1 year old, and from seed. We grow rhubarb from seed. And this is Glaston's perpetual. Yeah. We never split rhubarb crowns. It's a waste of time. I wouldn't bother. Let it be. Just let the. We like to see old rhubarb plants. We've seen one that's 50 years old before.
Yes.
It's like this size. It's sticking out of the ground.
When do you plant them?
What's that?
When do you plant them?
Anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah. That's the idea with perennials. There is no time of year.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. It's simplified. It's totally simplified.
Yeah.
The only thing you need to be careful with is plants that need a long time to mature, like pumpkins. Right? You got to start those off at the beginning of the year. But all these perennials, plant them anytime. So this is called Glaston's perpetual, and it's the only variety of rhubarb that you can harvest after midsummer.
After?
Midsummer. Because all the other varieties of rhubarb the poison from the leaves comes back down the stalk as the plant goes back to sleep for the winter. What's the name of it? Oh yeah, oxalic acid. Oxalic acid. You don't want to eat too much of it. A little bit is not a problem, but the rhubarb is full of it. So
Did you say the poison from the leaves goes back into the
it goes back down into the stalk as the plant retreats its energy.
Oh, okay.
For the winter.
So you shouldn't eat it when it's got a bit old then at the end of the season?
The other,
No, don't harvest rhubarb after midsummer.
Oh, right.
It's
Okay,
poisonous.
I didn't know that.
And you mightn't. Yeah.
but this one you can.
With this one you can, Glaston's perpetual. So in our vegetable garden, we always plant some ornamentals in between. At the end of each bed, we plant some perennial flowers that bring in the insects. So they take care of our crops in the garden beds, our vegetables. So we don't have pest problems.
What kind of flowers are they?
You can grow any kind of flowers that will bring in the insects.
Calendula.
So, calendula is good, but that's not perennial though.
Yeah.
What's the perennial?
Well, that grew a lot. Like
lavender, hyssop, or there's loads of anything really. A lot of different ones. So these are called, have you ever seen these before? These are called mashua, and they're a vegetable from, it looks like it, yeah. It's a tuberous nasturtium from the Andes. And the tubers are really spicy. We should cut one up and eat it actually. Everyone can eat a little sliver of it. It's really spicy, and you could cook them as well. Now there is some legends that they make you less fertile, whatever. Just eat something that makes you more fertile with that. But anyway, the leaves are really nice for salads. You know nasturtium leaves? Have you ever eaten nasturtium flowers and leaves? These ones are the same plant but less spicy, no spicy. No
But
spice.
you have the same kind of flowers on it?
Similar flowers,
similar.
but they're really sweet. The flowers are at the end of the season and they're really nice to eat. They're really sweet in a salad as well. And the leaves are very neutral, so you could even make a salad out of the leaves. And they're perennial. And they make a clump, 20 odd tubers like that from one plant. If you feed it well, if you plant it in compost. Even around here, put it at the end around the hedge. Just throw down a bucket of compost and put one of them in. And it will grow up the trees. Yeah, that's how much compost I would put there for this plant to eat. So it will grow. And sometimes what we did was we did some experiments with some growing experiments in our garden, as we do with lots of them. What we did was we got a big sheet of cardboard, put it down near our trees along the south side of our hedge. And we actually it works on the north side too, we later found out. Put down the cardboard, put down dump a wheelbarrow of compost, and then plant a few of them into it. Just 3 or 4 or even 2 or 3 in 1 square meter. And it grows up the hedge then, and you have the leaves and the flowers to eat during the season, and you have a ton of tubers. These have been selling out, all the tubers actually have been selling out for 4 years now, every winter. And we sell to the whole world almost. But now we stopped just only Europe and US. But it's very good now. We've been building up our email list. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You know, we've been just trying to keep our
YouTube Gardens for Life.
Yeah, we'll give you.
We give you
cards there. Yeah, we were trying to get our audience to be more local. Like say, the more local, the better, obviously. So Ireland, rather than say Europe, because you never know. It's just too far away. People wouldn't necessarily come for a workshop or whatever. We like to have put more of our marketing efforts, if you want to call it that, into getting customers or people, or whatever, our audience, build our audience, like an Irish audience, just because there's a possibility of actually offering other things to them later, like workshops or whatever, or courses and that kind of thing.
No. But, we own a venue. I'll give you guys one of my cards too. We have a venue, a rentable venue space with accommodation and like a kind of conference hall with a stage.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
This is filming and do film festivals.
Very good.
This is Taunton Dean kale, so there's 3 more, so people can take some. This is a perennial kale cutting from Charles Dowding brought this over 2 years ago to Burr. So
That's where I'm from. Dundee.
is that it?
Yeah, Dundee.
Eat it. You're well used to it, so
What's the name of our
it's a great meal.
council? It's called Dundee.
Oh yeah, sorry, and willows. Oh yeah, and this too.
Yeah,
There's
them like you were over the summer.
we have also got these tiger nuts, and you can grow those even indoors in a pot. You can start them off. They need to tiger nuts.
You can eat them as
Yeah,
well.
it's a nut that grows in the ground. You can try one.
Yeah.
It's a nut that grows in the ground.
Yeah.
You can try one, yeah. They're very hard, very hard, but these have been hydrated a little bit by I left them out for a week or two. But when they're very dry, they're
very
full.
nice.
Yeah, they're hard. Yeah.
Yeah, hard, yeah.
Tastes a bit like hazelnut.
And they'll grow in the Irish
Well,
climate.
they're sweet though. They're sweet.
They're very
When you
nice.
crack it, it's kind of sweet.
And they'll
But
grow
they're-
well in an
I
Irish
mean, they're
climate.
technically not. They do grow, yeah, but they're a lot of work to harvest, and the mice like them. So, yeah. But they're triple that size when they're fresh, and they're a totally different flavour when they're fresh. So it's worth trying. What's that?
Make milk
Yeah.
from them, can't
You can, yeah. Yeah, you can. You can plant it. Yeah. You soak it in water first for 24 hours, and you can. They double in size or triple in size, and then you plant them into a tray, and you keep it indoors where it's very warm.
Yeah.
And then when there's no more frost, you can plant them outside.
Maybe 5 or so.
I just do a tray like that. You can put 50 nuts or whatever into a tray like that, and then I just kind of tear them in groups and then just
It looks like
plant them here.
chives or something.
Yeah, it looks like grass. It's actually a variety of grass
Yeah.
that makes these little nodules on the roots. So
They're on the roots, you have to dig them up, do you?
they are underground, yeah.
Okay.
But they're only this deep,
Yeah.
Okay.
so the mice can find them easily. That's the trouble. But if you have cats, there's no problem.
Yeah.
The cats don't eat them.
No.
Sorry, she's asking
Sorry.
if we plant those.
If you just plant those, they're the seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you put them in the ground and just.
You'd soak them first and start them off in a tray in a warm place because they need to be very warm to start off.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. So this is biomass willow, and one cuddy, stick that into the ground halfway, somewhere in a field or somewhere where it's not going to get too overwhelmed by the grasses, and it'll grow up to 10 or 12 feet in the first year. In our no-dig garden beds, we planted one at the edge of the bed. Our shelter bed too, it's kind of mulched at this stage now. We're going to mulch the rest of it, and it can grow 3.5-4 meters in the first year, and then you cut it back and then it'll bush out, and it makes a really good shelter. I mean, I don't see any examples over here now, but if you drive along the side of the road, you'd see willow trees that have been cut back, and then they bush out, and they make for really good shelter. So that's why we use this in a shelter bed.
Can they handle harsh winds on them?
They sometimes fall over. Sometimes they fall over.
Give me the tiger nuts.
You're gonna plant? You're gonna plant? Stick.
Are you bashing back the briars? Yeah, so biomass willow is good for lots of things. Firewood is one obvious one. You could compost it. That means to cut it back near the ground, and then it'll come back year after year. Or you can just use it for stick wood, which is ideal if you have a rocket mass stove. Stick wood is perfect for burning in that case. So willows, these would be perfect for your rocket mass heater.
Yeah.
You can use it. It's really good for the insects in spring because they make loads of nectar and loads of big flowers. There's actually a variety that has very big catkins, it's called, and they're the flower of the willow, and they produce loads of early insect food when there is nothing else around. So, and then you can just, if one falls over, chop it up and use it for cuttings.
Yeah, just stick
You
it
know, they're fairly shallow rooted, so they can sometimes fall over, but it doesn't matter. It'll come back. Cut it near the ground. Keep a few buds.
Nature will just spread it around for you until it is a wall.
Just cut it back and it'll come back. It'll grow into a more stable tree. So it's known as biomass willow because you can. It's rough old weather. It's called biomass willow because you can use it for wood chipping. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get, if there's no more wood chips available or no more compost available, you grow your own compost. I mean, this is like making your own compost. You just take the wood chips and leave them in a pile for 2 years. And then you have pure compost. There's a guy on YouTube called Mike's Backyard Nursery. Highly recommend looking him up. He's in America. And he uses wood chips. He gets wood chips delivered by tree services. And he leaves it for 3 years in a pile. And he turns it over with the front loader. And it makes the best compost for potted plants. Full of minerals. So.
I heard you can make rooting.
You can, yeah.
Rooting, oh yeah, there's so many uses, isn't there? You can also put them into a bucket of water for a few weeks or a week or two, and then you can use that water as in for rooting plants. You can just soak, well, okay, with currants you don't have to do it, but let's say if you weren't ready to use these, but you had to put them back in the garden, you can simply put those into the bucket with some willows, and it'll actually help them root. If it wasn't currants now, if this was another type of plant, for example.
What about fuchsia? Would that be good for fuchsia cutting?
Yeah, the willow.
Yeah.
Fuchsia will grow easily.
Just cut the fuchsia, put it in a bucket with some willow sticks.
Yeah.
And then when the roots come, then plant them out.
Yeah, that's all there's to
I
it.
plan on doing a rake of
So
cutting.
you're saying that the willow is good for getting other plants to root?
Yeah.
By putting
Yeah,
it in a bucket of
it has
chemicals
rooting
in it?
hormone built into it.
So is that what rooting powder is made from?
Hormones.
No, it's made from chemicals,
Oh.
but this is a natural rooting hormone. So if you have dogs around or animals, and or children, and you're afraid, you don't want to have something poisonous on site, right? Like rooting hormone is really poisonous, and get it in the eye, you're blind because it's acidic. Just get willow and put it in a bucket, and you don't, and the dog can drink it.
It's not a dangerous chemical.
You know?